Okay, it was chucked from the outside on this tenon. Now I'm going to go back the other way. I'm going to go inside and open it out. But first I want to bring up my live center. Put a cone center on there now. Actually, I don't want the cone center. Let's switch. Not my best work there. I'll make sure I got this right in the center. So we're turning true. Tighten that up a little bit to make sure we're down bottom on the center here as best we can be. So we've got a nice even gap. Now if I remember to turn in the right direction. So I left a reasonably thick wall on here so I can put some good amount of tension on here, but if you turn both hands and crank on this thing, it'll just blow the whole thing up. So you want to make sure we get enough tension, and when I pull the live center away later, I just got to make sure I retighten that. So it's good. So this should spin close to true. We see got a little bit of wobble at this end. I wasn't quite centered. I think that's totally reasonable. I'll probably lose maybe a 1/16 of an inch max out here. I hollowed to roughly around here. So feeling pretty good about that. Like the rough shape. I'm going to tune up the shape, get this to a nice size for holding, and moving right along. So once I'm comfortable with the shape that I've gotten with my Easy Wood tool, I'm switching to a scraper. The scraper will allow me to get to a surface very near to that for sanding, so I don't need to do nearly as much sanding. Just rain on your relative clothes on clothing. Just a couple more here and here and raise your So the next step then is the sand, starting at 100 grit and working my way up progressively to 320. So my finish here starts as it did on the bottom recess with some shellac. So I do 2 layers of shellac, sanding in between, and then after that I come back for several coats of gloss polyurethane. It's always exciting at this stage to see the beautiful grain of this wood just really come alive with a little bit of finish on it. Looks good. So I'm pretty sure I forgot to turn on the microphone for that last segment, so let me talk about what I'm doing here. I've decided to use water-based polyurethane. This is just polyacrylic. You can get it at the big box store. The reason I chose this product for this particular application is because it's really easy to apply, builds really nicely, and for this particular project it's going to be, I want a really durable finish because hopefully it's going to be used for years and years and get lots of handling. And while I don't generally prefer a high gloss finish on most of my woodworking, I generally prefer something more close to the wood type of finish. In this particular instance, I really think a gloss will do really nicely in bringing out the beautiful grain patterns and colors of the wood I chose here. So this is now my second coat. I had 2 coats of sanding sealer with just a nice shellac. Let those dry completely, sanded them to about 320. The first coat of polyacrylic I allowed dry and sanded it to 320 before putting this coat on as well. So some projects I find are easier to finish on the lathe, some are easier to finish off of the lathe. This one I wasn't entirely sure which was going to be the case, so I decided to try it on the lathe, and I do think it is in fact easier doing it here. The last couple I've done I did off the lathe, and flipping them back and forth and handling them and all that stuff wasn't all that much fun, so I do think this is the better option. So this is the second coat. I think I'll do 3 and see what that looks like. It should bring up a beautiful nice shine and finish. This is very porous wood, so it's not going to get a glass smooth finish. I'm not going to bother putting a pore filler on it. I think that would be too big a hassle for what it's worth on something with a shape like this. But 2 coats in, I think the camera is probably picking up. This is already starting to show a pretty nice gloss to it. It feels beautiful to the hand with the sanding to 320. I think 3 coats, sanding in between this one and the final coat, I think we're going to be in pretty good shape. And then I'll plan on doing the same thing with the lid or the crank piece once I get to that point as well. So very, very pleased. Looking nice. Alright, putting on the third and what I assume is going to be the final coat here. Once this dries completely, and I mean really, really completely, because I'm going to be using my support system. I don't want the wheels rolling on unfinished or uncompletely cured polyurethane and screwing it all up. So I'm going to let this dry really, really well, assess whether this is in fact the final coat if I'm happy with the finish, and then I'll be ready to drill and hollow out from the top end, and then switch gears and start working on the top. Based on what I'm seeing right here as this is going on, I'm pretty sure this is going to be just fine with 3 coats. I think I'm going to be pretty happy with it. Alright, I think that looks pretty good. Let's let her dry. Okay, so the polyurethane is completely dried, cured. I think it looks great. I'm calling that done. So next step, I'm going to set up to start working from the top end, hollowing, drilling, and preparing for the top. Very pleased with that.